Hi, I'm Christine Oliver and this is Things Lawyers Ask Me, where I take real financial questions clients and other lawyers have asked me and share the answers. A lot of the questions I was asked by lawyers last year related to valuation issues. And maybe that's not surprising given how many commercial disputes involve valuation related issues. For example, post-transaction disputes, securities actions and loss quantification all directly or indirectly involve valuation concepts. When answering those questions, it often becomes clear that how valuers use the term value differs from how that word is used by other people. So while this series is called Things Lawyers Ask Me, today I'm going to answer a question that more lawyers probably should ask me. What does value mean? When valuers use the term value, they usually adopt a definition similar to that under the International Valuation Standards, where value is the opinion resulting from a valuation process. Unfortunately for non-valuers, that definition is entirely unhelpful because you need to understand the definitions of opinion and valuation process. Some valuers therefore explain the term value using a quote from Warren Buffett. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. In fact, I know I've used this quote myself. But the more I think about it, the more it occurs to me that quote is mostly meaningful to people who already have a fair idea what a value is, and those who don't have financial backgrounds are probably unlikely to be any more enlightened than they were before they heard it. What I do think that Buffett quote gets right though is to explain the concept of value by comparing it to what valuers mean by price. The reason I think that's useful is that we all deal with prices every day. Under international valuation standards, a price is the monetary or other consideration asked, offered, or paid for an asset. When I explain prices to non-valuers though, I prefer to make one small tweak to that definition, such that the final part of the definition refers to the monetary or other consideration exchanged for the asset. The reason I like this tweak over just using the word paid is that it removes potential confusion around things like legal fees, which might be paid as part of acquiring an asset, but typically don't form part of the definition of price. So as you can see from that definition, there are actually three types of price: an ask price, an offer price, and an exchange price. An ask price is what a vendor says it will accept for an asset, and you encounter these every day, for example, at the supermarket. But just because a vendor asks for a particular price doesn't mean that that's what price they'll actually receive. It might be that the price is negotiable. For example, a car yard will accept the sticker price on a car, but if you're an effective negotiator, that's not usually where your exchange price will end up. On the other hand, as I mentioned, you also encounter ask prices when you go to the supermarket. Those, on the other hand, are typically not negotiable, and you as the buyer have two options. You can take it or you can leave it. Offer prices or bid prices are what a purchaser or potential purchaser says it will pay to the vendor for an asset. Auctions are a really common example of bid prices, and much like an ask price, just because a purchaser makes an offer of a particular bid price, that doesn't mean that's where the exchange will end up. The vendor can in many cases negotiate, or they can walk away from an unacceptable bid price. An exchange price, or to use the term you more commonly hear, a transaction price, is the price at which the parties agree to exchange the asset for consideration. All of these prices have two things in common. Firstly, they're what I describe as real. That is, they exist in the real world, and typically there are documents that can demonstrate their existence. Secondly, they relate to a specific vendor in the case of an ask price, purchaser in the case of a bid price, or both if we're talking about an exchange or transaction price. That is, there is a person or an organisation we can put a name to in respect of that price. If we then turn to value, let's set the technical definitions to one side for the moment and consider the ordinary or dictionary definition, where value is an estimate of monetary worth. The most important element of this definition is the concept of worth. Intuitively, you'll know that assets have a different worth to different people. A Lance Franklin jumper is going to be worth a hell of a lot more to someone who is a fan of AFL than to me, who only has a passing interest. And yes, I am a terrible Melburnian, that might be part of why I'm now here in Sydney. Because of those differences, whenever we perform a valuation, we need to ask two questions. Worth to whom and for what purpose? Not only do the assets have different values to different people, they also have different values depending on what the person can or intends to do with the asset. So value actually differs from price on both of those key definition points I explained before. While prices are real, values are hypothetical. That is, values are estimates by definition. Prices relate to a specific vendor, purchaser, or both, someone that we can put a name to. While we can value an asset in that way, we don't actually need to. A value can relate to a hypothetical party or perhaps a group of parties. There's one other important difference that usually arises, and that is in most valuation contexts, we assume that the parties or party to whom we're estimating the asset's worth are what we'd call economically rational. And that means they seek out and correctly interpret all of the available information about the asset and behave in ways that seek to maximise their profit or economic position. The real world isn't always rational, and vendors or purchasers might miss or discard relevant information. They might interpret it incorrectly, or sometimes for emotional reasons act in ways that leave them worse off than an alternative course of action. So next time you're dealing with a valuation, hopefully you have a better understanding of what that means and why it might be different from available evidence about prices.